They say a breakup hurts, but strangely, it's the relationships that never fully happen that leave the deepest bruise. Not the official ones, not the long-term ones, but the ones that lived in the almost. The almost dates, the almost confessions, the almost future you saw so vividly it felt more real than the present. Psychologists call this ambiguous loss, a type of grief that occurs when something feels gone but was never clearly defined in the first place. And because your brain hates unfinished stories, it clings to the closing chapter it never received. You know that feeling, right? That quiet ache in your chest after a late-night conversation ends. That lingering warmth on your skin after someone touches your arm in a way that feels like it means something. That little spark of electricity when they smiled at you, the kind that you felt in your stomach long after they left the room. Almost relationships hurt, not because something ended, but because nothing ever began. And this is where the real psychology starts. Let's slow down for a moment. Think about someone in your life who wasn't technically yours. Someone you weren't dating, weren't committed to, yet somehow losing them felt heavier than losing people you've actually been with. Maybe it was a coworker you shared long glances with. Maybe it was a friend you were secretly falling for. Maybe it was someone you talked to every night until 3 a.m., someone who made you feel seen in a way that felt rare. You didn't have a title, you didn't have clear rules, and you didn't have a breakup. But you had emotions, real ones. In modern dating, especially in the USA, almost relationships have become incredibly common. We live in a world of soft launches, situationships, talking stages, and that awkward space where two people behave like a couple but refuse to call each other one. People don't say, "I want to be with you." Instead, they say, "I'm not ready for labels. Let's just see where this goes. I like you, but..." And you stay. Because maybe, one day, the almost will finally become an official. But something slowly happens inside you. You start planning your life around someone who hasn't chosen you. You start adjusting your emotional needs to fit a space that's too small for your heart. You start investing in a future that only exists in your imagination. And when it all collapses, when they leave or fade or ghost, you're left with the pain so confusing that you can't even explain it to your friends. How can I be this hurt, you think, by someone who wasn't even mine? Here's the truth. Almost relationships are relationships, at least emotionally. Your brain doesn't care about titles. It cares about connection. It cares about emotional promises, spoken or unspoken. And that's why the pain feels so personal. Because it is. Most people believe almost relationships hurt because you just caught feelings, or because you were too invested, or because the other person led you on. But that's only part of the story. There's a common illusion we tell ourselves. If it wasn't official, I shouldn't be this upset. People assume heartbreak only belongs to real couples, but psychology says otherwise. In fact, studies on emotional bonding show that emotional investment does not require a title. Attachment can form from consistency, not commitment. Your brain bonds with who feels safe, not who is official. So the illusion is this. We think we're mourning the person, but we're actually mourning the potential. Not who they were, but who they could have been. Not the memories you made, but the ones you imagined. Almost relationships hurt because you were grieving something invisible, but deeply felt. And that invisible pain is often harder to heal. Now, let's go deep. Here's the psychology, raw and real. Why do almost relationships hurt the most? Science gives us 6 powerful explanations. A. The brain hates incomplete stories. Your brain is wired for narrative closure. When something has a beginning, middle, and end, the mind relaxes. But almost relationships? They're open loops. You never get the ending, the closure, the explanation. And when the story doesn't close, your brain keeps rewriting it, replaying it, obsessing over it. This is why you keep wondering, what went wrong? Was it my fault? Did they care at all? Was I imagining everything? If I had said one more thing, would it be different? Your brain doesn't ask these questions after a normal breakup because at least you know what happened. But with almost, you're left with a psychological cliffhanger. People in almost relationships give you unpredictable attention. One day they text for hours, the next day they disappear. One night they're flirting, the next night they're cold. This inconsistency is exactly what activates the brain's strongest dopamine cycle, the same one behind gambling addiction. It's called intermittent reinforcement. Your brain says, I don't know when I'll get their affection again, but when I do, it feels amazing. This creates emotional dependency. You get hooked on the maybe. You get addicted to the potential. You wait for the next high, the next spark, the next almost. And every time they pull away, it hurts more. In an undefined relationship, your brain fills in the gaps. Because the person never became fully real, never fully defined, your imagination creates an idealized version of them. And you didn't fall for them. You fell for the version of them you created. You fell for the way they made you feel. You fell for the possibility of love. You fell for the story your mind wrote. And that story is hard to let go of because it's perfect. Psychologists explain that attachment can form from consistent texting, emotional sharing, physical chemistry, vulnerable conversations, shared routines, late-night emotional openness. None of these require an official relationship. So emotionally, you bonded, your brain attached, your heart invested. But because you lacked commitment, that attachment was fragile and therefore more painful to lose. It's like placing your heart on a ledge and hoping someone will care enough to catch it. Sometimes they don't. After a real breakup, you have rituals. You cry, you block, you vent to friends, you get closure, you say, we ended. But with almost relationships, there's no breakup to process, no closure conversation, no ending moment. So your emotions get stuck, frozen in an unfinished file. You didn't start healing because you never believed it was allowed to hurt this much. In psychology, there's something called counterfactual thinking, the pain of imagining what could have happened. With almost relationships, counterfactual thinking is constant. You wonder, we were so close. Why didn't it become something real? It felt like they liked me, didn't they? We had something, right? It could have been perfect. This imagined future becomes more painful than the actual person because the future felt real, and losing a dream hurts more than losing a person. Okay, now let's bring this back to your life. How do you heal from an almost relationship? How do you protect yourself from repeating the same emotional pattern? Here are powerful psychology-based steps that actually work. You don't need to rush into commitment, but you do need clarity. Ask, what are we doing? What do you want with me? What direction are we moving in? Ambiguity protects the other person. Clarity protects you. This doesn't make you too intense. It makes you emotionally responsible. Chemistry can be intoxicating, but consistency is what makes a real relationship. Ask yourself, do they show up? Are they emotionally steady? Do their actions match their words? Do you feel secure or anxious? If someone gives you highs followed by deep lows, your brain becomes dopamine dependent, not loved. Take note. Whenever you catch yourself saying, I think they mean this, maybe they feel the same, I'm sure they care but are shy, Stop. Ask, what did they actually say? What did they actually do? What is real, not imagined? This one habit can save you years of emotional confusion. You are allowed to be hurt. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to sit with the sadness. Validation is healing. Denial is not. Don't minimize your feelings. Honor them. If they're giving you intermittent affection, texting one day, disappearing the next, stop feeding the cycle. Silence is not always rejection. Sometimes it's manipulation. Sometimes it's laziness. Sometimes it's emotional immaturity. Whatever it is, you don't deserve it. Distance from inconsistency is protection. Fall for what is, not what could be. Fall for actions, not vibes. Fall for clarity, not confusion. Potential is a beautiful lie. Reality is a beautiful truth. Choose truth. Here's the insight most people never realize, the one that flips the whole story. The person who hurt you may have never actually existed, not in the way you imagined them. You didn't fall for their love. You fell for the version of love you created in their presence, the version you felt. Almost relationships hurt the most because you weren't rejected. Your imagination was. You didn't lose a partner, you lost a possibility. You didn't lose a relationship, you lost a story your heart wrote in the quiet moments, when they smiled, when they texted back, when they held your hand, when they made you feel like maybe, just maybe, this could become something real. But here's the truth. If something was meant for you, it wouldn't stay almost. Not because they never became something, but because they almost did. They reveal your capacity for hope, your capacity for love, your capacity to dream of something better. And there's beauty in that. Never apologize for having a heart that wants to love. Just save it for someone who meets you fully, not halfway, because you deserve clarity. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve a love that does not hide behind almost. If this helped you understand your emotions better, consider subscribing for more deep, psychology-based narratives and share your experience in the comments.